Hello, BookTube. This is Josh's Bagel book tag, created by Josh at Literary Gladiators, and he did tag me, and thank you, Josh. Josh's foodie book tags are something I discovered early on in my BookTube experience, and I redid one of his older tags earlier, and he's been kind enough many times since to tag me. It's probably pretty obvious how much I enjoy the tags and how challenging they are. So this Bagel tag had me scrambling. Number one, to think of what the best answers were, but also to find the volumes, walk back and forth, change my mind a couple of times, and it's sort of fun because it gets me to re-examine my bookshelves, to think about what I'm doing. So let's just jump right into it. And again, thank you, Josh. So the first kind of bagel is plain. A writer you feel does a great job with the same kind of work. Now for this, I chose a fella that passed away last year, and that is Douglas Riemann. He has maritime, nautical fiction, sea stories, whichever way you want to call it. So here, under his own name, this is a World War II story. Under his own name, A Prayer for the Ship. And some British motor torpedo boats, a subject I really enjoy. But he also wrote Age of Sail volumes, a massive series. This is Midshipman Belitho. And he wrote these under the name of Alexander Kent. So he's still in the same genre, roughly. And ships at sea, for sure. And even though it's two different eras, wonderful, wonderful adventure stories if you just want to sit down and lose yourself. So, Alexander Kent, Douglas Riemann. So the next kind of bagel is everything. A writer which you own every work. Well, I went through the list. Pretty close on Bernard Cornwell, which is saying something. Pretty close on a lot of authors. Roberto Colasso, obviously translated stuff. Nikos Kazantzakis again. I saw some writers that I thought I was better with that may need a little work because I've fallen behind. But I own everything that we have that Shakespeare published. Sometimes I own them in, in different volumes with different editorial apparatus. I own everything that we have that Chaucer wrote. It's come down to us. And then everything that the author we call Homer wrote. So those will be the ones I choose for that. Sesame, your favorite Sesame Street or Muppets book. I have never read a Sesame Street or Muppets book. I think my children may have some, so I will correct that. I did not grow up with Sesame Street. I did not grow up with Mr. Rogers. We had none of that stuff when I was growing up. We had a show out of Manchester, New Hampshire when I was a little boy. We only got one channel. I think it was Channel 9. Had something called the Uncle Gus Show. We had Captain Kangaroo, and we had Bozo the Clown. Uncle Gus Show I really liked the best because they showed, he did the map thing. He had a little studio audience with children. I'm not sure if he liked the children or not. But we'd point out the map, the states, and things like that. But what I really liked it for is he would show Mr. Magoo, Dick Tracy, and my favorite, Popeye. So that was my chance to see animated works. Because to get a channel, sometimes my dad would have me hanging out a second-story window while he yelled down from the living room for me to turn the antenna. So yeah, it was not like it is today. If he could see my phone, he'd be amazed. Number 4, Poppy, a short work that gives you an ecstatic high. I went back and forth on this because there's many. I don't know about ecstatic high. Well, why not? Nothing wrong with that. I finally, one that's been working on my brain this year, I just read it a while ago, but just keeps playing around up there and bouncing around. And that is The Word for World is Forest, and it's by Ursula K. Le Guin. And the more I think about it, it's a very short thing, as you can see. It really is quite something. I really thought it was great. Number 5, Salt, a good book that you had to put down in order to catch yourself from falling into oblivion, because I am in way over my head. So today is 1 year on BookTube, and that's why I said I was going to do a bunch of these tags today. And oddly enough, this is a book that I have been working on for a year. And it's this, Hector Berlioz and the Romantic Century by Jacques Berzon, an author I enjoy. I have managed to get through the first part. I mean, it's one work, but it's broken up into 2 volumes for ease. That's how far I've made it in the first, and it's volume, and it's not for a lack of trying. It's dense. It's just packed with cultural and musical and all these things. And the musical stuff is really, I read music biographies, music history all the time, but I'm not a musician. And every once in a while I'll run into a work that's a little over my head. Now I will finish that because I'm going to make myself finish it. And like I say, it's not the author's fault. I am not his audience in this case. And other ones of his works, yes. But this one is a bit much for me, but I will struggle through. I haven't picked it up in months. All right. Garlic, a genre you just can't get enough of, I suppose. For me, it's books about libraries, books about book collectors, book binding, the history of the book, anything like that. I just love them. And it's my profession, and my hobby, and all that other stuff. So that is a little niche. I don't know if it's a genre. I guess it's a genre. So it's just something I really enjoy, among other things, obviously. Number 7, Onion, a book that may cause you to get stares, but you enjoy anyway. Now, Josh loves cookbooks. Josh loves food, hence the foodie tags. And Josh knows a lot about food and about cookbooks. When I started this channel, I did bookshelf tours as a way to train myself to do videos. And one shelf I've never done. I mean, there was upward to 20 bookshelves in here. So that was a lot of videos. One thing I didn't do is the cookbook bookshelf, because I didn't think there'd be enough interest out there, and I do try not to bore the people watching the channel. But I love cookbooks. I like books about wine, the history of wine, guidebooks. I love food. I love food, especially if it's paired with travel or cultural information, which with food you can't get very far from cultural information. And there are some wonderful cookbook publishers in the world. And one of my favorites is the Fiden Press. So I picked one of theirs. Those of you who've seen like the Italian cookbook, Silver Spoon, all these other things. So just as an example, and if you're sitting around reading a cookbook, people will raise an eyebrow, and a lot of times they'll know what you're going to make. I read them even if I'm never going to make the dish, or if it's a goal to maybe get there someday. And this is Stefan Renaud's Pork and Sons. It's one of these Phaidon Press books, which are always gorgeous. And like I say, I have quite a few of them. This tells the story of him and his family, along with the recipes, and it's beautifully produced. It's a fine example of bookmaker's art. So, yeah, that would be, yeah, that can get you some looks, but I read it at home mostly. You know, I'm not going to lug it around everywhere with me, but I enjoy it. All right, number 8, Cinnamon Raisin, a sweet but thought-provoking work. For this, if you love books and you love movies, I can't recommend 84 Charing Cross Road enough. Anthony Hopkins, Anne Bancroft, Dame Judi Dench. Boy, the list goes on and on. Mel Brooks was connected with it. And there's a scene in there where Anthony Hopkins reads Yeats, and he reads, "He wishes for the cloths of heaven." And I'm not going to read it, but it is sweet, and it's effective. It always reminds me not only of my own life growing up, but of the movie, which I really love and recommend strongly. So 84 Charing Cross Road. Oh, number 9, French Toast. A writer you are happy to have discovered this past year. Well, that would be Penelope Fitzgerald. And I got one of these Folio Society. It's like a book when you order from them, and you get a surprise book they add themselves, and you don't ever know what it's going to be. It's quite a lovely thing, as their books almost always are. And when I opened it on camera, I did get comments, and so everybody else seemed to know who Penelope Fitzgerald was. So this is The Blue Flower, about Novalis, German Romanticism, that type of thing. Really good book. Really good novel. I really enjoyed it. So it was quite a discovery for me, and thank you to everybody for the comments about her work. And it caused me to go back and get this, Isaiah Berlin, The Roots of Romanticism, which is also wonderful. And yeah, great discovery. Isaiah Berlin isn't a discovery. I've read him for years, but Penelope Fitzgerald is, and I really enjoyed it. And then, let me see here. So that was French Toast. Egg, a work of nonfiction that caused you to cause you to form or switch a position. Now this one was a little tough. But as far as a work that made me look at things differently and look at one of the classic philosophers of the world differently, it was Karl Popper, The Open Society and Its Enemies. It's broke up into 2 volumes here. And he discusses Plato, primarily the Republic, but the other parts of his work. And you will never, ever look at Plato the same way again. So it starts, number 1 is with Plato, then it's Hegel and Marx, and it's all about the open society and those who are the enemies of the open society. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, highly recommend it. So Karl R. Popper. And then Rainbow. Josh said they do have a rainbow bagel where he lives. So it's an LGBTQIIAP+ work that made you think. So for that, got a cat messing around again. It's going to be the day with the cats try to steal the show. Or just make enough noise off stage to distract me. And for me, it was this. Lorca. A Life. A biography of the poet that's just, I really, really, really enjoyed. So it's Federico Garcia Lorca, one of Spain's modern poets. And a deeply divided man, Lorca grappled with issues of class, culture, and identity. He struggled to come to terms with his homosexuality. And Stainton shows how that struggle informed his work, which is true. It's amazing. Not only his own work is amazing. He had important relationships with Salvador Dali, Manuel de Falla. I mean, all sorts of folks. And this book is beautifully illustrated and just a great story. And of course, with the end, it's very tragic. Spanish Civil War cost him his life, and as did that of many, many other folks. So, yeah. Again, another one I would recommend. I don't know what year this came out. It's been a while. It's Farrar, Straus, and Giroux, New York. Lorca, A Dream of Life by Leslie Stainton. This was out in '99. So, yeah, very, very good book. And then number 12, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Bialy or Bailey. A fairy tale that you feel people need to read in its original form. And I don't, you know. I could think of nothing. I mean, if you don't like fairy tales, don't read them. Original form, I mean, I've read them, you know, fractured fairy tales, which I love. Yeah, I can't think of anything that I would think that people had to read in original form. So, number 13, what's your favorite kind of bagel? Lox, cream cheese, red onion, capers, sometimes tomato. I like it on sesame seed. I don't have access to great bagel shops around here. Farm stands, but it's just part of living in the rural world that some things that are like bagels that are wonderful, or with food, you notice it. When you live in a big urban area, you can live surrounded by a wealth of choices, and here that's not so true. And bagel tray, who do you tag? So I'm going to try to work through this list. Beacon Hill Books, Mel's Bookland Adventures, Elena Macrodina, Totally Pretentious, name change there, Old Blues Chapter and Verse, Just One Reader, Dane Cobain at Dane Reads, Todd the Librarian, Matt at Paperback Junkie, From the Dusty Bookshelf, and Earnestly Eston. So, again, thank you, Josh. I think he tagged quite a few people himself that I'm looking forward to also seeing. But thank you for the Josh's Bagel book tag. Thank you, BookTube.